Hello everyone, welcome on a new episode of Robert Spotlight.
Robert Spotlight.
Robert Spotlight. Robert Spotlight. Robert Spotlight.
Doing all this moderation stuff for Discord.
I'm a social media futurist.
To the moderator at Be Friends.
Now it's my project because I love sports.
I'm speaking at NFT NYC.
Welcome on the show. Hello everyone, welcome on a new episode of Robert Spotlight. And Robert Spotlight today, Anish, welcome on the show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you to be here. So we are going to talk about Panther Protocol.
Sure.
But just before, could you introduce yourself for people that don't know you?
Okay, so my name is Anish Mohammed. I probably should add the disclaimer that I've been around the block in the blockchain ecosystem for more than 10 years.
Oh.
So 10 years ago, I was an advisor to Ripple. And when Ethereum happened, I happened to know Victor. So I worked with the Ethereum Orange Swarm team. So I was one of the early members of the team and one of the official reviewers of the Orange paper. Then along the while, I've worked on probably more than a dozen dApps and probably half a dozen layer ones. So, and for the last 3 years or so, I've been working on Panther Protocol, for which I'm the co-founder, CTO, and the chief scientist. So mostly interested in zero knowledge proof systems, DeFi, layer ones, layer twos, fully homomorphic encryption, bit of interest in AI and ML. So I've also co-founded EthicsNet, which is a charity which looks at the ethics of AI. So that's in summary who I am.
Thanks for that introduction. So you just say that you have worked in several dApps before
Yes.
working as a CTO for Panther.
Yeah.
What would be the common lessons that you learn working on several dApps?
Okay, so the thing is, like I've said this before, so I should have added this. So I'm one of the people who was involved in the thing called token engineering. So between me, Zargam, and Trent, we were early on. So I worked with Trent and Ocean Protocol, and so that's a data marketplace. And I was early on as an advisor, and then helped him a bit more. And over the years, he's a good friend of mine, and I've always worked with him. So the thing I was about to say is, like, whenever you look at protocol and protocol design, everybody makes a bunch of assumptions, right? It's like a battle, right? You can think about Russia invading Ukraine, right? When Russia invaded Ukraine, Russia had a plan. The plan was, okay, we call a bunch of things. It's like seed and other things. It's like very strong electronic warfare, suppress everything, no plane takes off, bombard all the places where you have all the planes that are there. Once you're in, your plan changes, right? Your adversary reacts, right? So when you build a protocol, this is exactly like this. You make a bunch of assumptions and you go, you know what? My users are going to do this, and they're willing to pay me this much. My competitors are going to do this. And then you deploy the protocol. When the rubber hits the road, everything changes. Your assumptions on security changes. And then the market evolves, right? So it's like when you are, starting out at the start of the DeFi, the gas charges were really low. And somewhere along the line, somewhere June, July, August, gas charges went up to $100. So essentially, if you were like a small farmer, you could no longer do any farming. The same applies to your protocol. Like you make an assumption of the cost of running a protocol based on the gas cost you're going to have. And you make all these assumptions, and you make this very beautiful models on tokens, right? Tokenomics or token engineering, whichever way you call it, right? All those notions are pretty much one-sided. And I say even if you do run simulations, it's pretty much one-sided, because no simulation can actually give you a perfect match to reality. And if you have that one, that's called a crystal ball. You get the crystal ball, you look at it and go, oh, that's exactly what it is. If anybody has one, I would love to get a copy of it.
Okay, so it's like in a summary, what I understood is basically whatever you're playing, be prepared that the reality is going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, love that. Thank you. So just before going on a deep dive on Panther Protocol, I want to do a rapid fire question.
Sure.
So I'm thinking about post-production for social media. So let's start the rapid fire. So what is your name?
Anish Mohammed.
Okay. What company are you working for?
Panther Protocol.
What Panther Protocol is solving?
Panther Protocol is providing what dark pools provide for centralized finance. Panther Protocol is a dark pool for DeFi, which supports both KYC and selective disclosure.
Perfect. What are the things that you are doing that the competition is not doing?
I mean, the key thing that we are doing is effectively making sure that whatever you do within the context of DeFi remains private, and you have the ability to do KYC and do selective disclosure for any transactions within that, small construct of DeFi. We don't provide privacy anywhere outside or any place else.
Perfect. And what is your view in 10 years about your industry? So let's say DeFi and privacy.
So this is what I would say. DeFi and privacy, in some sense, are orthogonal, but at the same time, the ability for anybody to have a strategy depends on privacy. You can't have public strategy, right? Your alpha or your difference from anybody else is your ability to execute your strategy in private. So for DeFi to really succeed, right, and to have real global adoption, we need to have the same norms we have in normal places. In a bank, your bank transactions are known to not to the whole world, right? If you go to a bank, put some money, nobody in the world knows like how much money you put in. In DeFi, that's the case. You put some money and everybody in the whole world knows that you put some money. And there's also the other thing I was describing, the dark pool. A lot of the transactions that actually happens in a dark pool, right? And I would really recommend like the book called Dark Pool as well for somebody who's really interested to understand the construct. But the summary generally I describe is like, if you look at Renaissance Technologies, that's the hedge fund that's only open to its employees. Apparently it gives like 40% APY, APR. Nobody outside knows exactly what their strategy is because it's private. So what I'm saying is like, unless there's privacy, unless there is ability for DeFi to actually interact with CeFi and like literally interact in a true seamless sense, where you could actually have the same level of products with similar characteristics and compete with it, DeFi would find it a struggle to really outcompete CeFi. So let me explain one simple thing before I complete, because like I want to make sure that everybody understands why I say this. So typically speaking, if you have a centralized mechanism, the centralized mechanism, you know what you need to do. But if you have the simplest of this DeFi mechanism, the simplest DeFi mechanism runs a consensus mechanism. Okay, for running the consensus, imagine it is running leader election protocol, right? So the work you need to do plus what work you need to do to find the leader is extra bit you need to do. So to compete one-to-one, you need to have the ability to provide the people who use DeFi the advantage, right? That advantage that overcomes the cost that you incur in doing the lead election protocol. That's what I would say.
Okay, thank you. So let's go on the deep dive on Panther Protocol. So you just explained. So the mission of Panther is to provide privacy on DeFi.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about the technical stuff that you are doing to enable that.
Sure.
So what about zero knowledge protocol?
Okay.
Zero knowledge proof. Sorry.
Proofs. Okay. So zero knowledge proof is a class of protocols that actually allow you to prove to somebody whatever you claim is valid without them knowing what it is. So let me walk you through a normal example I use. So imagine this room. This room has like one door. And I say to you, Robert, I'm going to do this. I have the ability to escape from this room. That's my claim, right? And now I'm going to prove it to you, right? So I am the prover. You are the verifier, right? We go outside. We stand outside the door. You close let me inside the room and you close the door behind me, right? Okay? And now in 5 minutes time, you see me outside and I didn't come through the door, right? Now you know for a fact that my claim of having the ability to escape from the room is valid. What you don't know is how I do it. That's zero knowledge, okay? This is a zero knowledge protocol. So this actually helps you to get privacy. And that's a very important thing I want to say. Zero knowledge is not equal to privacy. Zero knowledge allows you to attain privacy when other things are there, right? Say, for example, imagine there's a room and there are like a room of like one person, right? So if you have a proof that you're in the room, you're 1 out of 1. Everybody could figure out who you are. But imagine you're in a room of 100,000. You have 1 in 100,000 chance of guessing who you are, right? That is when you get privacy. And that's when zero knowledge gives you privacy. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So basically you work in 2 steps. The first step is to make, to let people understand, like it's to be able to make a claim without revealing how to achieve the claim, basically. And the second thing is, the second aspect that you brought on is the ability to blend information together to don't be able to point out which one it's with who.
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So did there is any other concept that someone need to know about ZK?
There are lots of constructs that you need to know. That's one is completeness, and other one is soundness. And this is what I normally say to people. So imagine this. Imagine in a real world, if you had all the characteristics of zero knowledge, then if you were to talk to somebody and you make a claim, the first party that you are proving it to, right, will be assured that you can only prove it to them if and only if you're telling the truth. Okay, that's one. And the second part is like, if you tell the truth within a bounded period in time, you will be able to convince the other party that you are telling the truth. So in addition to zero knowledgeness, which is what I was describing, the fact that you don't know how I do it, there's completeness and soundness, right? The completeness and soundness gives you this magical ability. Like imagine you had a difference of opinion with somebody, right? And you both don't want to know like exact details of this thing, right? But as long as it could be like you have another half and you and another half had some challenges about some stuff. And you're proving it to the party that this is what it is. So you are assured that that you could prove to the other party that whatever you say is absolutely true, right? At least within the computational or mathematical sense. And the other party could be absolutely sure that they can only prove to prove to them if and only if you're telling the truth, right? So that's the beauty of a zero knowledge.
Okay, perfect. What about ZK snark? I
hope
that I say that correctly.
Yeah, okay. So snark is like, remember I was talking to you about interactive protocol, right? The way I was proving to you that I have the ability to escape from a room is considered an interactive protocol. But if you can do this in a non-interactive way. So the problem with interactive is like, you have to do multiple interactions, right? So if you want to actually, let's assume this game. Let's assume a game that I say to you, have the ability to predict a coin, right? Every time you toss, right? And I say I can predict the next 10 tosses, right? One way to do was like, I say, starting now, toss it 10 times and you write it down. And before you write it down, I will send you this. And your toss would look like this, right? That's a non-interactive protocol, right? I send you the heads, tails, head, tails, and I send it to you. And, you could actually then toss it and then you should turn out the same way. Interactive one is like, before every time you toss, I tell you what it's going to be, right? So what this allows you to snarks allow you to do to have a zero knowledge proof in a non-interactive sense. So you commit ahead of time and then you literally have the ability to get an interactive proof. So let me go back and explain why this is important, right? So when you toss, there's half a chance, right? So to predict like n tosses is 1 by 2 raised to n. So it's like, 1 divided by the number of tosses you had raised to the power 2, right? Okay. 3 times is 8, like, so it becomes a very large number. So you have a very high assurance that, it is unlikely that somebody would actually be doing this. But when you do an interactive, you get half a probability most of the time, right? So this is what I'm saying. So it's like a non-interactive one. It's one shot. You just do one interaction, and then you have very high assurance that your proof is valid within the probability that somebody could cheat is very, very low. Or guess is very, very low.
Okay, perfect. Something that I forget to ask you, it's I mean, you are not the first to try to create something like this on the blockchain, right?
No, I mean, there have been a bunch of people who have been doing it. So the story goes back to Zcash. So the first of the schemes where we have a zero knowledge snark, okay, succinct non-interactive argument of knowledge is Zk, right? I mean, Zcash, right? So they published a paper called Zero Coin. The paper, the real implementation happened in 2015, 2016. So that is the first time that you actually have implementation on a blockchain. So there are a bunch of other people that are there that have been doing zero knowledge. Yes.
Okay. And where I wanted to go with my question, it's in the introduction, you explain what you are doing differently than others,
yes.
Right? Could you maybe quickly explain what other attempts have been done with the wrong way?
You have to repeat the question for me. I'm not sure.
Sorry.
I fully understand.
So if okay, no problem. What I try to find out, it's basically, so I asked you previously, what makes you different, right?
Oh,
and
okay.
Now
yes.
the question that I want you to ask to, if I said it correctly, it's what, in your point of view, are the things that other projects that try to solve the privacy on DeFi fail to attain?
Okay, so I will give you in a very high level. So I've given a couple of talks on this topic. So, I'll start with an example and then I will explain and I'll point you at the talk, which I gave it at CC, and I also gave a talk at the Near Protocol Summit as well. So it's like, it will give you like a reasonable, rigorous analysis. So imagine, you go to a Burger King or McDonald's, right? You rarely ever go to a McDonald's to just have a smoothie, right? You go there to have a burger and then you have a smoothie, right? So that's how I see privacy. So unless you're doing something very, very, very challenging, let's put it that way, generally you value privacy, but the value of privacy is below the cost function of whatever you're doing, which is actually whatever you have to do, right? So your alpha, you only value your privacy less than your alpha if you were to do a DeFi strategy, right? Pretty straightforward, right? So this assumption that you can actually make privacy and you can provide it to users. One, users really, really understand a lot of technical nuances. That's number one challenge. Number two challenge people have is the cost of doing this, right? Like if the cost of doing this becomes pretty high, you will struggle. So imagine if gas charges go like $100 and you have a protocol that's implementing, snarks on Ethereum, then the cost of gas will be pretty high, right? Then number three is like, usability and throughput, right? Usability and throughput in the sense like, if you actually have like a throughput, you do something and you have to wait for like 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? So these are the kind of challenges you have. And also the challenge being, if you build a protocol and if you can't actually prove to everybody else that you have done it in a very secure manner, that third party could actually vouch for you, it becomes a bit more tricky. So these are the general challenges that people have had while doing things like this. So when you do privacy for DeFi, you need to definitely make it much more usable. You don't have to actually jump through 10 hoops to make this work. Number two is the cost for doing that should be well within the bounds, so you still have some alpha if you were to deploy a strategy. Number three is the throughput you need to have. It should be good enough so you don't have to wait for two days to get something up. And number four is like your security should be something that's understandable by people. They can actually look at it and they shouldn't be concerned about the security because like there's two parts to this equation, right? If you know that you have no privacy and you do something, that's okay. If you do think you have privacy and you do something and then you recognize in hindsight there's no privacy, it's a bigger problem. So this is kind of what I'm saying.
Okay, perfect. So let's get back on the pointer. So you introduced about the zero knowledge proof. you introduced to the then snack function. Now let's talk about synthetic asset.
Yeah. So synthetic assets are very pretty simple, right? Like you just go, okay, you have an asset. I want to create an abstraction of an asset. So let's think about money. Money is a synthetic asset. Nobody really knows what money is. It's an imagination. It's a figment of imagination. So the figment of imagination, the blockchain world is synthetic asset.
Okay. And could you explain how they are created on the Panther Protocol?
Oh, it's in Panther Protocol. It's pretty straightforward. All you do is okay. Let me walk you through a situation where Panther could provide you with some alpha, right? So one situation number one. Okay, you are a DeFi researcher. You found a strategy. You want to deploy your strategy on, say, Uniswap, right? So you come in. You have a bunch of assets. Let's assume you have ETH, right? So you come in and you deposit ETH into or wrap that into, say, Panther. And Panther then actually gives you ZETH, right? And now what Panther allows you to do is on the other side on Uniswap, you can deploy your strategy. When somebody looks at you using your address, they won't see, they just see, oh, you put some ETH into Panther, okay? And then if there are 1,000 people in Panther at that point in time doing transaction, they would see the summation of 1,000 people is like they sold this, this, and this, and this, right? So nobody really knows exactly what you did. So you, as Robert, who has 1,000 ETH, who you are shorting somebody, right? And unless everybody else in the 1,000 people are not doing anything big, right? You won't stand out. So you would be able to merge with the set of all transactions and deploy your strategy, short something, make your killing, and then get out, right? So the Z wrapped ETH is there. You do all the transactions in Uniswap in that sense. When you get out, you have your assets come out, and at that point in time, also I should probably say, it is very likely in the future, because of the way the regulations are going, we might have to support KYC straight up. What I mean by that is like when you come in, and that's that because of the OFAC listing and things of Tornado Cash, you come in, you will have like a KYC provider providing you the zero knowledge proof of your wallet, like you're verified, right? Now you come in at that point in time, you're verified, you're clean, you go into Panther Protocol, you do what you do. When you get out, at the same time, you might, if you really want to go do a transaction with someplace else to convert it into some real money and send it to a bank, you will probably have to do your KYC again. Because like otherwise, none of the people will accept money from that sense, right? So your strategy remains private in the bounds of Panther Protocol while you do transactions in, say, Uniswap or any other protocols that are there, right? So you, as a researcher who has some strategy, it's a secret. It's a secret sauce, right? You don't want to reveal it to anybody. So while you have actually implemented this and got your upside, nobody outside actually has figured out exactly what you're doing. They might think you're doing something, but they don't know exactly what you're doing. This is what Panther would allow you to do.
Okay, perfect. And to get back to bounce on what you said about KYC, that makes me think directly to Tornado Cash, right?
Sorry, could you just repeat what you said? I'm sorry.
About KYC.
Yeah.
When you talk about KYC, on my head, the image that I picture was Tornado Cash.
Yeah.
Right? And you say that at some point, Panther will have to integrate that on their feature.
Yeah. So, we already have a lot of the mechanism already in place. So for example, for our public sale, we actually had the mechanism called LaunchDAO, where we did KYC and issued private identities for everybody, right? So we've been doing that for a while. The thing I'm saying is like when OFAC actually makes a list of addresses, if you ever do any transactions with any of them, you're in trouble. The trouble is big trouble, right? It's trouble with a big T, capital T, which is essentially they would come after you whichever country you are in, right? That's a challenge. So everybody who's building protocols actually have to navigate this legal challenge. So I'm pretty sure a lot of the Ethereum clients have actually incorporated this. So, you probably won't be able to submit some of these transactions to most of the places, right? So, if you were a staker and imagine Coinbase absolutely will have no chance in hell to do a transaction with any of the OFAC ban lists, right? So, as a smaller protocol, very small set of operator like Panther, we would prefer it to be the case that, if you were to do transactions, it'll be ideal for everybody. Because the thing is, like, if you have a MASP, right, they would literally go after, if they can't figure out who is who. The strategy is like, typically what governments go and what people tend to do from the past. It's a colonial style, punishment, right? I don't know if you know this. Like in the colonies, it's like then 100 years ago, parts of Europe used to rule over parts of India and Africa and other parts of the world. If one person in a community does something wrong and the person doesn't tell what it is, everybody in the community gets punished, right? So that was the punishment they did. And now, for some reason, I don't understand why, maybe there's some reason behind it, which I don't know. All financial regulators seem to do the same thing, which is like, if one person does this, let everybody pay for it, right? So, in a way, thinking about it probably is right, but I am not, like, I come from India, so it's like we have the history of British actually ruling over India, and a lot of things have been done. A lot of those things are not very pleasant, right? And it's never a very good policy to have. But unfortunately for us, that could be the way things are going to go. Like, so we want to avoid that. Like, not everybody in the world have to pay the price for, a small set of actors doing certain things that this set of people are not very happy with. So, again, there's two sides of an argument. I'm just saying the obvious for people, right? If you are somebody who's building a protocol and you look at the Tornado Cash and go, that's a risk I don't want to take. The path to take is literally, implement technologies that will allow you to comply by KYC and compliance requirement, right? The alternative is be very bold and, completely decentralize and say, let them go after. So having said that, just to be clear, Tornado Cash, at the point when they had the case come against them, they were completely decentralized, right? So, I don't know how much of a leverage decentralization is going to give anybody, but I stop.
Yes, so thank you for this claim. And basically, it's how I picture the thing. For me, it's like, how will we be able to have a true decentralized things if at some point regulator said, okay, stop doing decentralized thing and put KYC everywhere, etc. So it's kind of where I have kind of questioning, about did we think it's an utopia or did we think it's going to be a true thing? So here I'm talking about privacy on DeFi.
So, this is a very tricky thing, right? Like if you look at the regulation that's in the pipeline in all the different places, if you look at MiCA in Europe, it doesn't look like they give a lot of, this is the irony of situation, right? This is what I generally talk to everybody about, right? If you are an authoritarian state, you want to know what everybody does, right? So this is what I was talking to you about. Like, if I go to the bank, or if I have a $10 in my, I don't think I have a $10, but let me see what I have. Like, So imagine I have $100, right? Let's imagine I have $100. This $100, the funniest thing is, like, if you do a sampling of this is relatively new, so it might not have enough of drugs on it. But somebody did the analysis of a dollar, and what they found is every human secretion plus a lot of drugs, right? So that's the state of affairs. But, crypto is like a very tiny segment of crypto actually has this kind of exposure, right? So, I think Chain Analysis published a report and it was like less than 0.25%, right? So that's where reality is. But unfortunately for us, we don't make the rules, right? Rules are made by other people and we have to comply by it. The price of non-compliance is very high. So, we have to decide how we want to play this game. I mean, I really respect people who decide and want to do things the way they want. They are the pioneers of the space. Decentralization is very valuable. Ability to resist, censorship resistance is very valuable. But the question then becomes, like, how do you bootstrap a protocol in a censorship resistant manner? All those kind of things. Panther definitely wasn't constructed in a manner which could provide, like, I'm a co-founder. I am recognized. My other co-founder is recognizable. My team members are recognizable. So, like, we can't run away from any of those things, right? So it's a construct that's there. So we have to play the game in a way that we do everything that everybody asks us to do, best of our abilities. Some things you can't do, like you go, look, we don't have magical abilities. There's other things we can do. We'll do that. So we need to reduce the risks, play the game accordingly. But if you are like a completely anonymous team, you build something, you deploy it, nobody knows, job done, right? That's what it is. So that's another path to take. And there is definitely a space and a place for those kind of protocols. The society will definitely benefit from that. But, Panther, I don't think is the place where we can actually afford to do that as a team.
To do what?
Create a protocol and not comply with any of the things that the regulators are saying. Yeah.
Okay. And so, with this statement, what would you say to someone that say, okay, I will only go on Panther Protocol if you ensure me that I will be stay private in perpetuity?
So what I would say to them is the following, right? You definitely would stay in private for your transactions you do in DeFi. Only you have the ability to prove to somebody what you've done, right? So the selective disclosure is you, the user, has the ability to prove to HMRC or IRS in the US that, for your tax purposes, these are the transactions you did. Other than that, when you come in, you do your KYC. That's between you and your KYC provider. Nothing to do with Panther. If they say to somebody, this is who you are, that's your problem. You know what I'm saying? As far as we are concerned, from a protocol perspective, we try our level best to provide you with privacy. Yes, there are some realities of the world. If tomorrow you have a quantum computer and you could break an elliptical crypto, snacks are broken. Oh, shit.
It's possible?
Okay. I'm just saying, if a quantum computer is available and it has enough bits to factorize elliptical discrete log problem, the SNARK commitment scheme, G1, G2 to G1, right? That could be like factorized, right? And you can actually go even further. Like you can actually, but just looking at a public key can, work back all the private keys. So everything will be broken. When everything is broken, then there's nothing to private ever, right? Yes. So if that happens, I can't give you actually. So that's what I say to you, right?
Okay, perfect. Did you saw the recent tweet of Vitalik Buterin? He said an incomplete guide to steal addresses. It was 5 days ago.
I have to admit that I don't keep track of Vitalik that much. For me, he has been somebody I've watched carefully, in theory, part of a larger team in that sense. And I consider him a very good communicator and a leader in many ways. But, sometimes I think, let's put it this way. So this might be controversial, but this is how I consider him human. So his decisions, there is low subversion, right? So, I can say to you, this is public. So when I was an advisor to Ripple, I took no shares. So I had no low subversion in my decision making. I'm not concerned if Ripple goes up or down, right? So if you have a very large amount of money, say $1 billion, right? And your decision is actually going to make significant impact on your value, you will have hidden biases, right? So for me, early on, he had none of those biases. Right? Now, he has lots of things attached to him. So I kind of think of him as, slightly being politically correct. So, okay. And the other part is like, one of the things I didn't say to you in this conversation was my background is in cryptanalysis. I went to a grad school to do cryptanalysis, right? I have a degree in medicine, 2 degrees in that. So, I've been doing cryptanalysis and cryptography for a very long time, right? I was on Ski.Crypt in the late 90s. Right? I was on the cryptography mailing list since 2000, 2001. Okay? So I'm one of those guys who have been doing this long while. And I know a lot of the people who are very well-known cryptographers, and I worked in 3 research labs, right? 4 research labs in that sense. So, to me, when somebody talks about something, I have a criteria for, recognizing their contribution to that thing, right? So I admit Vitalik is one of the people who really allowed Ethereum to happen. So I happen to know Victor, I happen to know Stefan Toll, I happen to know Vinay, okay? So I know what has happened, right? And I was around when that happened, right? So I consider Vitalik as a human, and I know what he's done. I really acknowledge the contribution he makes to Ethereum as an ecosystem. At the same time, I consider him as a human, and his human decision biases are factored in whenever he says something. And I'll always stick with that amount of filtering. Some things he is really visionary. Some things I go, okay, that's interesting.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for this explanation. Basically, I asked you that question because it was on point of the topic of the day, because he was basically saying that one of the main concerns regarding the longevity of Ethereum is all Ethereum need to handle the privacy. So it's why I asked you the question, and thank you for your reply.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you some context. So for Panther, I haven't said this as well. So I have a spare time interest as a philosopher. So I published a paper in 2011 with a co-author of mine called The New Secret. And it describes how structures in power exist in societies and how information arbitrages happen. So, democracies require privacy, right? You can't have a vote in a democratic system if you don't have privacy, right? So that extends to everything. So, if you were to consider Ethereum as a mechanism to provide value transfer, or as a global, computational platform, all of that requires privacy, right? So, in my thinking, it's a very, straightforward assumption that if Ethereum fails to have any sense of privacy, we might have larger challenges.
Okay, perfect. What about the governance of Panther Protocol?
So the governance of Panther Protocol is pretty straightforward. We allow people from the community to put proposals in, go through the voting mechanism like a normal DAO. If they, if they come out to the other end, we say, okay, that's it, next one. Whatever we need to do, we will do, right? That's typical standard process of normal DAO. We haven't reached the level of maturity I would like it to have, to say that everything is 100% decentralized and everything. We still use in a snapshot and reality.net and normal things that are there to actually achieve the normal results. So we are not like extreme decentralization fanatics. We have done enough of decentralization, allow all the normal things to happen, but we are pragmatic decentralists. That's what I would say.
Could you hear me, Anish? Oh, yes, you get back. So thank you for the reply. Talking about governance, the core feature of a Panther, the core unit of Panther is to manage person into a pool, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say slightly differently. So the thing is, there's this, I haven't really explained it fully. So there's this construct of multi-asset shielded pool, right? So what that means is like you can submit any kind of asset into a shielded pool, and the shielded pool allows you to interact with other things. So I was describing DeFi adapter to say Uniswap, right? You could also have the possibility to do bridging from say Ethereum to Flare or Flare to Near or Near to that sense. So the thing that it does is like effectively it allows people to pool a bunch of resources or assets. And remember the snark thing I was saying. So that gives you the privacy because of the large number of people in the transaction. And then that privacy allows you to interact with the DeFi protocol and shield you from normal things. To a degree, you get a protection from like amoeba attacks and sandwich attacks, because if somebody's actually watching you and going to sandwich you, like it will be very hard for you to recognize where it's coming from. You just see Panther Protocol coming in, and you go, okay, I'm going to try sandwich Panther Protocol. You could be getting a wrong end of the stick, right? Like it's impossible for you to understand what is happening next, right? So it gives different sets of things in that sense. Small amount of immune protection, a small amount of sandwiching protection, and definitely a large amount of privacy. Now, the thing I didn't mention to you is the construct of privacy mining. So as I was saying, like privacy only happens when there are enough of people in the room. Remember, I was telling you the zero knowledge proof of one person, but the zero knowledge proof of 100,000 people. To incentivize people to stay in the room, you have to give them something, right? So to stay in the stadium, you have to give them something. So you can give them a discount, or you can give them some monetary value. So we give ZKPs. I mean, effectively, we give PRPs, which is translated as ZKPs. So that is called privacy mining. Essentially, what it does is like you provide liquidity to the pool. So there are enough of people in the room, or enough of liquidity in the pool. So when you do a multi-associated pool, there's enough of assets. So nobody can actually know exactly who did what. That makes sense to you? Yeah.
Yes, makes a perfect sense. The question, basically, where I wanted to try to go is to find out what could be defined as a single point of failure on the Panther universe.
Oh, the single point of
failure.
If
there is one.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, if there is one, is like the liquidity question, right? So remember, I was saying zero knowledge is not helpful if you just have one person, right? So if it's just one person in the room, if it's you, it's you. But if it's 100,000 people who are 1 in 100,000, that is essentially what it is. And then remember, I was telling you about the problem of quantum computing and all those things. If that happens, the whole of Ethereum is still, so is Bitcoin, so is most things, right?
Yes.
So
okay. And did there is any kind of I will assume that you have made any audit of your code, right?
Yes. We've had a couple of people audit us. I think we had one from Certic and a couple of other people. I mean, a lot of them are published in our website, so I can't remember who it is from the top of my head.
Yes.
So the problem with zero knowledge is like there are not that many people who understand zero knowledge enough to do code audits. So we have like a couple of people. I think Chain Security may be one of them. So there are like 4 or 5 people in the world who actually do security audit for ZK snarks. So we've used a couple of them. I mean, again, the challenge is like it's a long queue, right? And you need to get things done. So you find the best people you can get and get them to review.
Okay, perfect. On your website, there is a roadmap till December 2022, and nothing about 2023. So could you talk about what is your plan for that year?
So I shall explain what is happening. So we have a roadmap that we are still, kind of discussing. We have almost figured out our roadmap for until definitely end of 2023. So in a larger construct, this is like a 3 years since we started. In that sense, like this year will be more than 3 years. So we want to have clarity on which bits, like. As I was saying, whenever you build a protocol, you make some assumptions on the ecosystem and you build it. And as you start building it, the things start changing and you want to change the protocol to adapt to it. So there have been a bunch of changes that we have been looking at. And we are having, our team is actually meeting up in Dubai to discuss this in a couple of weeks' time. Like, I think less than a week's time, 2 weeks' time, right? And we will have a lot more clarity. We will have everything cleared up. So in my mind, I have a lot of clarity, but I really don't want to say this out loud. But a lot of things will be published in like 2 weeks' time. So once everything is signed off, like everybody in the team has to agree to everything that needs to be done. And once that's agreed, then we will publish it. So definitely, mass is ready to go. We are just waiting for version 1 is ready to go. We will definitely have it out. A lot of the compliance features are being implemented. It will be out. A bunch of DeFi adapters are almost there. They'll be out. So like there's a bunch of things that are there, which will be published in a very short time. So the summary is like there's a roadmap for 2023. It's there, but we don't have an infinite roadmap. It's a finite roadmap. We are trying to understand what we can actually deliver within the time period that we have and how best to do things with the time and resources we are available to us.
Okay, perfect. On your light paper and white paper, I saw that there is a wallet on the plane.
Yeah.
So could you introduce to people watching the interview what are the features that can someone expect on that wallet?
So, the wallet is not a true wallet in that sense. It's a wrapped app in that sense, because building a true wallet is a lot of effort, and it also has a lot of security problems. So we took the middle path, which is like create a wrapped app that actually allows you to do things. So if you go to if you go to Panther Protocol, and if you click on the app, you can actually see the interface. So a lot more features are coming in there, and it wouldn't actually force you to do anything that's unnatural. That was a design criteria for us. So making sure that we allow the users to use the protocol with minimal amount of clunkiness, right? So they don't have to touch their nose with the left finger, with the small finger 3 times before the protocol starts. Nothing of that sort. You just do what you normally do. So normal wallet, you connect. Again, the connecting to, we have deployed in Polygon. So Polygon, it'll tell you, okay, this is what it is. So normal staking and staking, connecting to protocols and doing swaps and things like that. That is what you can expect. And it will be very much a wrapped app and not on a wallet. So like the wallet will be MetaMask as it stands right now. And then, if we end up doing snaps, that will be something, again, within MetaMask, other than like building our own wallet in that sense. Building our own wallet would imply a lot more effort, and adoption would be a problem, right? Like, then what means is like, if you want to use Panther Protocol, you need to have the wallet. Yeah.
Yes, makes sense. So something that we didn't talk a lot, it's about the scalability and how what Panther is doing to achieve scalability, and what you said about, don't wait a lot of time in front of the computer. So could you explain what are the plans?
So, firstly, in general, the thing that you have to do to get scalability is be on a layer, which layer 1 or layer 2, that is high throughput. So we are on Polygon. So, it ticks like 2 boxes. One is the gas charges, and second is the throughput, right? So in that sense, the scalability is reasonably good scalability. And the other part is like ZK, the computation of ZK, which is, we optimized this as best we could actually do within the constraints. So in summary, we have, made a bunch of architectural choices that allows users to have all the benefits of being in an L2 that has high throughput and low gas charges, which allows you to have like a pretty good throughput in that sense.
Okay, and so would you say that Panther will be built on Polygon, or there will be two sides? One side on a layer 1 and one side on a Polygon.
So we have deployed our staking on a Polygon. So what has actually happened is, like, right now, when you do anything, because as you rightly pointed out, the cost and execution is going to be a bit of a problem if we do this on Ethereum straight up. The gas costs are going to be quite high. So we just deployed on Polygon, right?
Okay.
So you just connect to Polygon and do everything over there in that sense.
And why Polygon?
Oh, it's a very simple thing. It's like, imagine you go to a place and, you want to speak a language, right? What would you prefer? Find the language that everybody speaks, right? Simple, right?
Simple.
And now there's a benefit, right? Like, if you speak the language, you can buy things cheaper, right? Your transaction costs are low and you get it faster. So imagine you are in a marketplace and you speak a language nobody else understands, and everybody charges you more. I think that would be a silly thing to do. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's I'm totally agree. But basically, why I asked the question, because it seems that layer 2 now it's kind of Polygon. There is other layer 2, but it's kind of the market have decided that okay, layer 2, the thing to choose to pick up, it's a Polygon. And when I asked the question, it was just to pick your brain about why that move has been done.
It's a very simple question. Like, even though I happen to know the co-founders and I have a reasonably good relationship with them, there's nothing to do with no personal bias. This is a very simple question. It's like, why are we speaking English, right? if I speak my mother tongue and you speak your mother tongue, no way in hell are we going to be able to communicate.
Yeah, it's true. But at some point, we have to have the English, right?
Yeah, yes.
Because what I try to express, it's at first Polygon wasn't English. It became English today.
Yes, absolutely.
It's
absolutely.
What
English wasn't English. So it was a language spoken by a bunch of guys in a very small island, right? When they conquered the rest of the world, that's when it became English.
Exactly. And did there is anything about Panther Protocol that you want to talk about and I didn't address?
I think you pretty much covered everything. Like, you went through all the key things, and I'm pleasantly surprised that you were more prepared than I was prepared.
It's without the white paper and light paper, I wouldn't be that prepared. But when you have everything on one document, it's very very good. And one question, because I use Chat GPT to prepare the interview, and Chat GPT compare Panther Protocol with Uniswap market maker. Would you say that it's accurate?
No,
because based on my reading, it's not.
Yeah. It's just like what I would say is, like, if Uniswap were to be private, we could do that. Remember, I was telling you about having a DeFi adapter on Uniswap. Uniswap is a constant function market maker, right? It's just one trick horse, one trick pony. We can support any of the other, DeFi protocols in that sense.
Okay, perfect. So I'm glad that I covered Panther Protocol globally. Now let's talk about coffee with crypto. What about that?
Oh, it's a very straightforward thing. I moved to Dubai in 2021, and I recognized that the quality of the conversations, so signal to noise ratio for most conversations was not to the level I would like. And I have been always interested in creating, high quality groups. So in London, I used to run the React group when big data was a thing. I used to be very watching on the cloud and big data and drones. And I still used to run Drone Zone for a while in open source drones. So, I'm used to this concept of, okay, you turn up again, even hackerspace. Like, I'm an activist to things like, if you need to build a community, you need to go out. So I created a Telegram group and I offered everybody to turn up, and we will discuss a paper and I'll buy coffee for everybody. And what I realized is, like, it didn't get to the discussing paper level, but we have like no shilling project pitches, and like the community has grown like for 500 people. They are like self-sustaining. I turn up and I have a bunch of my friends who are helping me. So it was more a case of like, how do you increase the level of conversation with less marketing, more substance, more focused on real things and helping founders of project to interact with others and get feedback from others. That's literally what has happened now.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the explanation. What would be Anish, your biggest problem right now?
Could you repeat what you said?
What would be your biggest problem at this moment?
Oh, the biggest problem at this moment, it depends on what context you're asking. If you ask me as a founder of a protocol, which is privacy, it's a compliance story, right? Like clarity, compliance, and regulation, and all those things. From a technology perspective, I would say hardware acceleration and of ZK and FHEs in that sense. It's like, if I could get better throughputs, I could get better results. So it's like, two classes of problems in that sense. The technology one then, and like a governance and regulatory one on the other side.
Okay, perfect. And what are the things that you are looking to, as maybe a trend, or maybe, something that you expect to have on the marketplace that it's not today? Basically, I'm picking your brain just to...
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yes.
So the previous thing I was saying is, like, if you think about hardware acceleration, there's a lot of interest in ZK acceleration, right? I expect this to be real in the next 12 to 18 months. In 12 to 18 months, like, the way you could think is, like, if you were in the late 90s and early 2000, not all websites had SSL, right? because on the server side, you need computation to be done. There's RSA, there's END, and the server has to do computation. So you had this hardware acceleration. So the hardware acceleration wasn't available everywhere. So, when you were writing a software that actually had SSL on it, you're very, very constrained. Now you don't see any of it. Everywhere you have SSL. You have SSL accelerators you can buy off the shelf. The same thing I expect for ZK. ZK will have ZK accelerators. You can buy off the shelf and you can just plug it in and ZK will happen straight through. And you wouldn't even notice it's ZK. Okay.
And how do you think that this thing is going to impact the market?
So, I think ZK is very closely, associated at the edge of fully homomorphic encryption. So two things can happen. One is like a lot of the things that we use in Web 2. So the other thing I want to say is like ZK is currently be used in Web 3, but it doesn't have to be just Web 3. It could definitely be used in Web 2, right? So you use passwords to do authentication. Imagine you have zero-knowledge authentication. Hey, there you go, right? So there's a long set of use cases. Your KYC, the thing that you do for your Web 3 you can do for Web 2. A lot of those things, right? And you can actually get your contract and you never see your contract. You get a zero-knowledge proof that this is actually valid, right? So all of that could happen. So in theory, what you can have is ZK could become a lot more mainstream, and that could actually change a lot of the things that happen in Web 2 and Web 3, right? Because right now, two things are happening. Number one is a throughput question, and number two is regulators and other people understanding. Like regulators takes a bit of time to understand things. Digital signatures, right? It took a while for signatures has been around for a very long time. It took them like 15, 20 years to recognize digital signatures are good as a signature, right? Now we do, everybody signs DocuSign and everything, right? Hey, that didn't exist before, a short while. So the same thing will happen to ZK.
Okay, makes sense. And what would be the biggest opportunity for someone, so it's like you are, basically it's kind of, you have a crystal ball right now. And you say that, okay, in the next 2 years, Bitting is going to be a thing. From a business perspective, what would be the opportunity today?
So the way I would say is like, I don't have a crystal ball. So the things that I think could happen, I could be very biased. Firstly, it's like, any of the models that are in the CFI space, that is an arbitrage in the DeFi space, that will be real. Secondly, the thing I was saying, like ZK and FHE, in that sense, that if there are use cases that could be enabled and there's value to be unlocked by ZK and FHE, both in Web 2 and Web 3, that'll happen, right? That's my take on this thing.
Okay, perfect. Did there is anything that you want to say and I didn't give you the opportunity?
No, I think we pretty much covered most of it, and I probably have to disappear and jump on another call. So Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anish. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for all the explanation.
Okay, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Bye.